Hi, it's Sam. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can take any root note and incoming pitch and transpose it or quantize it to whatever scale you want. So to start off, let's create a couple kslider objects so we can view the input and output of our transposition and quantization. Next, I'm going to create a U menu so I can put in the list of root notes, which is just going to be C through B. So let's go into the inspector, add C, C sharp E, D sharp E, F sharp G, G sharp A sharp, B. Okay. C through B. Okay, great. So what we're going to be doing here is thinking about the major scale, and you can apply the same logic to any other scale. So the major scale in C is going to be all the white keys on the keyboard. So we're going to think about these in terms of pitch classes, which means C equals 0, C sharp is 1, etc. So C, which is 0, should be mapped to C because C is in the scale. C sharp is not in the scale, that's number 1. And so let's map that back to C. So if we get a C sharp in, that's not in the scale, so we're going to put it to C instead. If we get a D, that's 2, that is in the scale, so we're going to keep that on D2. D sharp is also not in the scale, that's 3, so we're going to put that on 2. E, 4, is in the scale, so we'll keep that. F is in the scale, so we're going to keep that as well. F sharp is not in the scale, so let's put that back to F. G is in the scale, so we'll keep that as is. And whoops, this is supposed to be a 5. Okay. G sharp is not in the scale, so let's put that to 7. A is in the scale, so we'll keep that unchanged. A sharp is not in the scale, so let's put that to A. And finally, B is in the scale, so we'll keep that as is. So now we've created a mapping. We have the incoming pitch class, which is going to be represented as a integer here, 0 through 11. And we're going to map that to the correct output. So if it is in the scale, then we don't really need to change it. But if it's not in the scale, we're going to have to put it to the nearest note. Okay, so how do we do this? First, we put these root notes in here for a reason. And that is so we can use the index that comes out of the first outlet of U menu. And what I want to do for this algorithm is keep everything in reference to C. What do I mean by that? Every note that comes in, I'm going to subtract the distance from the current selected root note to C. So for example, E, the distance from C is 4 half steps. So I'm going to subtract 4 from whatever the incoming note is, so I can make this quantization that occurs afterwards in relation to if the root note was C instead. And this makes it very easy to do all the quantizations that we're going to be doing without having to think about the different mappings for each root note. But if I subtract the distance in the beginning, I'm going to need to add it back at the end so that the correct note comes out. Okay, and for this to be correctly updated when we change the root note, since it's going to the cold inlet, do our typical int and then bang. Now from here, I'm going to use a trigger because we need to get two pieces of information now. First, I want to get the pitch class. that's of the incoming pitch. And then I also want to get the octave information, because we're going to strip away the octave information to get the pitch class. I need to add it back at the end. So I'll show you what I mean as we go here. Let's start off by looking at how to get the pitch class. We're just going to use modulo 12. Since there are 12 notes, using mod 12 on the incoming, since there are 12 notes per octave, C through B, if we use modulo 12, we'll get the correct pitch class from the incoming MIDI note. And we're going to use that as the index for a lookup. I'm using ZL lookup, which when you put in an index, it will give you the associated, whatever the list is. So I'm going to make a list here. It's going to give you the associated value in that place in the list. So we're going to take the values that are listed on the right side here. So we have 0 going to 0, 1 going to 0, 2 going to 2, etc. 0, 0, 2, 2, 4, 5, 5, 7, 7, 9, 9, 11. So that's our mapping. And this will correspond to whatever the incoming MIDI pitch class is. We need to make sure that we put this in to the lookup. So I'm just going to lock the patch and click it to make sure that it goes in. Great. Now that it's there, it's going to give us the correct mapping. However, we lost all of the octave information here when we did mod 12. So for example, if I used this note, that is number 60, that gave us 8, which gave us a 7. So now I lost all the octave information. So I need to add that back to the MIDI note. So how do we do that? All we need to do is divide by 12 and then multiply by 12. And this is going to give us some multiple of 12 that represents the correct octave information that we stripped away from using mod 12 here. Then we just need to simply add back what we took away at the beginning from the distance from the root note. And then we'll have our correct mapping. So let me quickly change the selected key color to red so that's very easy to see. And I'm also going to send the velocity here so that I can make sure to trigger the notes. So let's click on C. So C has no sharps and no flats. So when I click on the black keys, I should get the correct mapping, which I am. So like A sharp is going to A, G sharp to G, F sharp to F. Now if I were to change this to say, so A major has a C sharp in it, so I click on A, now it's going to B because there's no C natural. So it's gone down to the lowest note that's nearest to it. Okay. So this seems to be working properly. F is going to E since there's no F natural in A major. And this is working. Great. So what you could do from here is to add a second U menu that has the name of different scales. So for example, let me put in major, minor, maybe minor pentatonic. And when you select one of these, you could use the index as an address for the call object. And inside the call object, you could store the mapping for that particular scale. So maybe at address 0, I have the mapping for the major scale. And that way you could change what the lookup is referencing on the fly so that you could change the scale type. And that way you could expand this to use other scales as well. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And if there's any other topics you'd like me to cover, please let me know as well. Otherwise, class is dismissed.